Everything is okay? The video, the sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah,
Are we supposed to see the chat on the side or not really?
The what?
So we're live now, right?
Are we supposed to see a chat room on the side? Because I don't see anything.
No, I don't think so.
The questions come from Facebook, I think.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. I will check the last thing and we start, okay? So maybe anyone can say a joke or a song. Fraser, do you have any jokes before?
No, I'm not really.
No? Mauricio?
Funny man. I don't really do that. Quite serious. Only occasionally do I make people laugh.
Well, this is going to be an interesting interview. Pablo's in Chile. I'm in Colombia. And Fraser's in, tell us.
Malta.
Yeah, it's live.
Malta.
Okay, so
we finally got some rain. Yes. Okay.
Okay, so first of all, welcome to this live Q&A. I am Pablo Amira. I am a mentalist from Chile. I will be one of the hosts. Please, Mauricio.
Hi, I'm Mauricio. I'm a mentalist from Colombia. Good to see you all.
Yeah, and we are very happy to have a very nice talk and interview with Fraser Parker. Fraser, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Laura and Believe in Magic Place, and also to you gentlemen, Pablo and Mauricio, for hosting this. Hopefully I won't go off on too much of a tangent as we speak, so you guys can tie me back down to the earth and be more specific if we need.
We will try, we will do our best, but as we talked recently, we are mentalists, so we think in ideas and very strange things, so that thing could happen, but we will try to direct you to the light, okay? So Fraser, okay. As a first question, just to know you a little bit more, tell us about you, your background in mentalism or in magic, in your interest, so we can know a little bit about you.
Okay, I first got started in magic quite late. I think I was about 18, so I wasn't one of these guys that, or girls that goes to magic. I saw David Blaine on TV and thought he looks really cool, and just wanted to be just like him. But it was only a few years after that I started to sort of get into magic a lot more in depth, and that's when I came across the work of my now mentor, Kenton Nepper. His work, because I was always looking for like methodology that was as close to real as possible. I just believed it had to be out there, and Kenton seemed to have some of that, you know. And I don't mean to say that I do real magic. To me, magic feels real to me because of my approach and the methods that I use, because I use words and I deal in perception and stuff like that. So to me it feels real, and also to the audience, I think they feel it as well. It's almost like I've got a silent script. It's almost as if I am using reality and crafting it in such a way that I am a real magician in those terms. So without going too much off a tangent into that, I suppose it was David Blaine that started it, but then I became more serious and started looking into the art a lot more, and the way you would craft things, the craft of magic as well, and mentalism.
Great.
Okay, so you mentioned that that Kenton was a huge inspiration on you. How did that influence your style exactly? What are you doing now? What is your style like? Tell us about that.
Okay. Well, as some will know and some probably won't, Kenton is really big on kind of metaphors and treats mentalism and magic as an art form. So it's to me it's similar to how a songwriter might affect someone emotionally, and also you know the metaphor that they use. So I kind of am using it as a tool for expression. And I don't know really, I'm kind of, to me, just talking to someone and sharing an experience with them without doing any magic can actually be an effect in itself. And we have like two words for this. We have effect, spelled E-F, etc., and affect, which is spelled with the A. And I think the two can blend well together. And what I've kind of become known for is not only what I've become known for as well, from a method point of view, is blending method with effect. So it kind of becomes one and the same thing almost. At least that's how it feels to me when I'm creating stuff. So that's kind of the biggest influence Kenton's had, is the wording and the intent behind what we're doing as well, and realizing that we're responsible for the experience that we're sharing with our audiences, and it's really about having quality time with them, I think. I mean, I want to leave the world a better place than what I found it, and I'm going to try and do that with each person as I go, and just hope that this little by little I can share some light. So that's kind of it.
Yeah, yeah. And you just explained and told us that in a way you learn about your mentalism from musicians, right, and songwriters, and how they can affect with words, right? What is your take in the concept now called emotional mentalism, in which the performers try to move emotionally to the audience and their participants?
I think that it's relevant. I think, I mean, obviously Peter Turner is great at this, and I think he would even tell you that it's not always appropriate to always be eliciting emotions. I think it should be emotionally relevant as well as relevant to the audience. It's kind of you know, there needs to be a meaning or a reason why you would do a specific effect, perhaps. Sometimes the meaning itself can be that it's just a throwaway fun thing to do, like guessing a card, for instance. So I think it's really, I think it's relevant, but it's important to always balance things, you know. And I think like music's a really big influence for me. I think it's the most immediate art form. The fact that it does elicit emotions, and it's kind of cathartic in the sense that you realise that we're all kind of similar. And I think mind reading can show us that as well. That we can share with each other, and we don't have to sort of hide away inside of ourselves, if that makes sense. So it's kind of, I think emotional relevance is important, and making what you do relate to the audience is important, but it doesn't always have to be that way. It could be, you know, a throwaway effect. I mean, that's what seems to be the difference when I talk to some of my friends in the Magic Club here. They're into magic and not so much mentalism, and they go, well, you know, I'd want to entertain, which it does have to be about entertainment, and they're exactly right with that. And what I say to them is, you know, I'm not down on magic. I literally, I think there's a place for this. You know, there's different styles, different uses for magic. But my approach personally is to make it seem as real as possible, and I had to go about that in a methodological way. I had to make my methods seem real to me to get that across to the audience. I don't think it's necessary. I think there's classic methods, for instance, like billets and stuff. There's a place for them, and I still use them. But one of the things I want to do, and I feel like I've got a need to do it, I'm not sure if this is the way mentalism is going, but is to sort of try and do things propolis, or evolve the classics, take the classics and try to update them. So that's one thing I'm doing as well. Nothing wrong with the classics, and there's gold in there, but just personally I want to push it to whatever level I can push it to, you know.
Okay, now that you're talking about, you know, pushing the level, do you use disclaimers? Do you, like, what do you say to people when they ask you this is real? If you're actually getting into their mind, you know, what do you tell people when they actually question you about this on a personal level?
Okay, I don't really have a disclaimer, because I think that my approach is kind of this disclaimer in itself. Because if there's a, I'm not sure the poetic way to put this, but because I'm dealing with reality and illusion and perception, the audience understand that that's what one of what being a magician might be like when they see me perform, because I'm using reality as a tool itself and perception as a tool itself. So I don't have to say whether it's real or not. I can talk in terms of reality is an illusion. Of course, it's real as well. It's a divine paradox. You know, if I hit my head onto the wall, it's going to hurt me, right? But at the same time, it's illusory. So it's really my approach that I think sells itself, hopefully. But otherwise, you would cover that with careful scripting, of course. I think everything that you say and everything that you do is a suggestion. And in fact, even the context of what you do is a suggestion. And that's really what I'm interested in at the moment, is creating the context to the point where you're almost sort of operating on a different level to what the audience would believe you could go to. And that's where they miss it, and that's where the deception is. I don't know if you guys know Andy Kaufman. He's deceased now, but he was famous around in the 80s, I think, in America. And he was on Taxi. But yeah, so you know him, right? I've been looking at his work because he did do that. He took it to the next level. He kind of he went on stage and just pretended that he was bombing on stage and acted it so well. People later on in his career knew that he was, you know, he was bluffing them, that they were still fascinated to watch him do it. But to start with, people didn't really know what was real and what wasn't. And it's kind of like this hoax situation. And that's really interests me at the moment. I'm not saying that, I mean, you've got to think of how you would apply that, but I think that that's what it takes almost to operate on a higher level, especially when it comes to like fooling magicians, for instance, because we are dealing with perception, and I think even magicians can forget that and be fooled by it themselves, you know. So that's what I'm kind of moving towards. I mean, all of the true mystery stuff kind of works because of the context. It looks like what I'm doing is the real thing, therefore it is the real thing. And you've literally just acted as if it's that way, and it's like almost like you've waved a magic wand and then it's become your reality, and everyone else's reality as well. And the nice thing about this is it uses dual reality. For anyone at home who hasn't looked into that yet, it's essentially where two or more people will have a different perspective based on the words that you say and what you suggest with your performance. But the nice thing about the true mystery stuff, which is my pseudo-trance stuff where I apparently do hypnosis without using hypnosis, the nice thing about the true mystery stuff is that the differing perspectives are so close together that they become the same reality for everyone. So even the participants are fooled. They're not actors, they're not in on it. And so we don't really need stooge methods these days because we can do it with dual reality and perception. But I prefer dual reality that's more close-knit. I've also got a method. I don't use stooges, but I've got a method from my notebook. I was looking through my notebook a few days ago, and I remembered something that was in there. And it's essentially a way of framing the idea of using a stooge in such a beautiful way to the person who's helping you out, who's in on the effect, that they will definitely keep the secret and play along for the rest of their lives because you framed it so perfectly. So if you ever did need a shortcut for whatever reason or a way out of something, you could even whisper this in their ear under the guise of doing a personal reading or saying something personal, and then you've got like the perfect effect after that because they're going to play along. I haven't written it up anywhere, but I'm going to call it the frame up, I think. So yeah, so without going too far off point again.
Nice. Thanks, man, for that sharing. Now, if you think that reality is an illusion, I think that in reverse can work for you, right? Illusion is a reality?
Yeah, but I'm careful. I do think that, but I'm careful. I know that it's a half-truth. So I'm not just going to say that everything is illusory. That's why I said about if I stub my toe on a rock, it's going to hurt. It's a half-truth. And it's with magic, I think one of the roles of magicians is showing people this, that to look deeper than the surface appearance of what they see, or just believe, you know, to question their beliefs. I think that's a real useful tool as a magician. So that's what I like to work as well.
Yeah, but with that thought in mind, you think that magic can be still presented as a real experience, not just an illusion? What do you think about doing magic, or do you do magic or just mentalism? Because I think that it's very difficult to convey the idea that the vanish of a transposition or whatever magic effect, as we call it, is real, because the audience will understand that this is not real. It's an illusion, right? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, right. I mean, that I'm talking about using magic and the craft to show what's underneath all of that, which to me is where the real magic is. It's the connection you make. It's the enchantment. It's the wondering at the universe. And also, magic effects are kind of correspondences of larger ideas, universal ideas. Like making something vanish or disappear is death. Making something appear out of thin air, out of nothing, is kind of seemingly talking about how things manifest in reality. So there's definitely a poetic metaphor already inherent in magic, in things that we take for granted, such as coin vanishes and stuff like that. But I think what it's really getting to, especially with mentalism as well, it's showing that we are, I suppose with mentalism, it's showing that we're all connected. I don't tell people what to believe, I don't preach. I think your art should speak for itself. What you do and what you say is really enough. It's really just connecting with someone. That's all it is. It's just being alive, you know. It's kind of hard to put into words, but I think it's more about uncovering magic, or uncovering the experience that's already there that we probably miss, rather than trying to create something out of that. I know this is, you know, I'm going off on conceptual stuff, but this is kind of how I live and how I think and speak.
Yeah,
so hopefully this isn't
great.
Too far.
Great. We are reminders, right, about the mystery.
Exactly right, and it is that. It's about uncovering something that you've forgotten about yourself. You know?
Now, Fraser, earlier you were talking about how what you do looks like the real thing, which is what we all want to achieve. So people like Darren Brown and Pure Effects, he talks about how most mind reading acts look like anything but mind reading. There's no visible process. So I'm wondering, what is your visible process? What do you do? I mean, in terms of breathing, in terms of touching somebody, of silence. Tell us about that part of the craft. How do you make it look real?
Okay. I think again the silent script comes in. My personal silent script is based on using methods that, to me, seem close to real methods, using words, perception, so on. But for people that use more conventional classical methods as well, it's really acting, I suppose. It's almost like having a silent script. I think it was Goshman who, when he did his coin vanish, imagined the coin actually disappearing in his hands. And that, to me, is an aspect of real mentalism also. Because he believed it himself, he gets other people to believe it. I know that Kenton holds up objects to his audience that aren't there. But because he just believes it's there, they see it as well. And they would swear that they've seen that object. So I think acting is essential. But then where does acting come from as well? Like, that's something you have to question, because you're essentially putting on a role or a face. But we do that with our personality anyway. So I suppose there's not much separation between my personal life and performance either. It's kind of like I'm always on stage. I want to be a symbol of a magician. That's why I got into it. It's not to just do some tricks. I think that's where I'm coming from. Does that answer the question, or do you want to be more specific? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's good.
Okay.
And Fraser, in that thought that you said that your life and your performance life, in a way, is a very blurry one and with a thin line, right? In that idea, I think that you are kind of prepared to perform always, in a way, right? You perform always. What is your approach about that?
I think I don't know. I think again, I mean, if I don't want to perform something, I'll do a reading, but it might not come across as a reading. It might not. The most powerful effect I've ever done. There's this girl, and we were stood outside of a pub, and I knew that she had some problems going on. I could sense that from her demeanour. So that kind of was the real mentalism for me. And I might have noticed something on Facebook, something wasn't right at home, and I noticed that she was always trying to do things for other people. So I remembered the line, which I've used in readings before as well. I said, I know that you're caring, it's okay to care for people, but don't forget about yourself in all of this, because what does it matter otherwise? And she went, oh, thanks for that, and you know, it was kind of like awkward, but a nice moment, sentiment to leave someone with. A few weeks later, she came over and said, have you got anything else that's completely life-changing? So, to me, I didn't have to do an effect at that point. I just had to listen or be aware of what was going on for someone and have someone to talk to. Some people don't feel like they have friends necessarily because they shut themselves away. You've got to have the balance there, I suppose. You don't necessarily just go up to strangers and, you know, because we kind of like to freak people out as magicians, but it's a responsibility as well, because maybe people can get a little bit too pushed too far. So there's a responsibility there as well. So I don't necessarily perform all the time, but I'm going to carry myself as a magician all the time, because that's who I am.
Fraser, okay, we're getting some questions on Facebook, and one of them is one of them is asking about if you had a mentor. You already mentioned that, but the other one's asking, who would you like to work with, you know, from the present or even from the past?
Who would I like to work with?
Yeah.
From the present, Pete Turner. We sometimes soundboard ideas off each other. Every time I'm in his company, I'm blown away. I think his approach is so great. I can't wait to go back to England. I'm moving back to England. I've done the summer season here in Malta. I'm looking forward to getting back to see Pete, Michael Murray, Carl Scott, and all the gang, Atlas, because I think they're great lads, and they really are pushing the art form. We think similarly on similar levels, so definitely in the present would work with those and hang out with those. From the past, Chan Canasta, he's a legend. You know, he was bold. I think that's what it takes. Another thing I was thinking of earlier as well before I came to the interview, I wanted to mention was something that Doc Shields talks about, is that when you have like poltergeist activity in your house and stuff like that, if it's not a poltergeist, for instance, it could be as simple as children playing a prank on the parents. Wait until they turn around and their attention is misdirected, and then they can just throw an object at the wall. And the parents turn to where it hit, and then they just lie about it and say, no, that wasn't us. And so it's almost like childish thinking, and that's why the methods I come up with, I want to be as simple as possible. So I think we can overthink things as well some of the time, because some of the most deceptive, you know, things come from children, because they think in playful, childlike ways. You know, not to take anything away from childish thought, because I love the simplicity and the directness. I can't remember where we left off from though. Why did I get into that?
Well, Fraser, you told us that music is a good inspiration for you in the affect that music can create, right? And also the Andy Kaufman comedian. But do you have other inspiration or sources, maybe other type of art, maybe science? Tell us about that.
Okay, yeah, I'm really into philosophy. To me, that's real magic. It's kind of secrets that we forgot about or was in danger of being lost. Music, definitely, it gets me from day to day. I don't know what I'd do without music. I have actually got a background in art. It was kind of a gift as a child to be able to draw. And, you know, I don't want to sound like big-headed or anything. Just as a case in point, I was I think I've got like a drawing when I was 6 that was A-level standard. So people thought that I was going to just naturally do art, as in like in a technical way. But then as I went to university to do that, I realised that it was more about conceptual things. And then I discovered magic and left university early because I just fell out of love with drawing, but the creativity stayed. So I'm happy that I've got an outlet for creativity with magic. And I'll probably go back to drawing later on in life and painting and stuff, but it just doesn't do it for me anymore. It's magic. It seems like that's my true vocation. I think the creativity definitely informs it. I think that's kind of how I came in as well as a creative person.
Okay. Now, here's something that I'm really curious about, and it's your process of creation, Fraser. What do you do in order to create things? What's your mental process? What do you go through? Tell us about that.
Okay, usually it's from an effect. In fact, it kind of happens at the same time. There's this idea of whether should you do the method first or the effect first. Sometimes it's a method that I've sort of realised can be an effect, and it can be the other way around. But it seems to happen simultaneously with me. I'm kind of grasping around. I kind of see a concept and think that could be something, and then what I like to do is I sit down at a laptop and I type scripts, because what I do is words and perception mainly, and other parts of the method will come from there as well. So it's about playing, I think. Again, I'm essentially just playing with scripting, and the nice thing about using a laptop is I can keep it neat and I can edit it as I go along. So I can end up simplifying a script to the point where it's so subtle, the two, for example, if I'm using duality, the two perceptions that I'm creating, the different realities for the different people, it can become so simplified that way because I'm constantly editing the script. What I used to do, I've got a notepad here actually from Poland when I had a Polish girlfriend. This is probably 6 or 7 years ago, and a lot of the True Mistress stuff came from this. And
Nice.
it probably won't surprise you that I've got absolutely terrible writing. It is essentially just scribbles. So that's the notebook. If and you know, hopefully one day that'll be worth something. I don't know. It'll probably outlive me anyway. But yeah.
Fraser, what can we expect from that notebook? Do you have any upcoming projects? I heard something about a deck and other things. Fill us in on that.
Yeah, the deck I released as a pre-order, and we've sold out now. But I'm currently in talks to get it distributed, and at some point it'll probably be on my website again. But essentially, it's a marked deck, and it's an idea that I had around the same time, actually, quite a few years ago. And I mentioned it to Pete Turner at Blackpool, and he said you should do it if you can do it. But the concept was a marked deck that becomes more apparent the further away you are from the deck, but it stays hidden closer up. And I managed to finally solve it, and I've shown it to magicians. Even when they know what to look for without practice, they still can't see the marks, whereas I can see it as clear as day now. The nice thing is as well is that it works without your glasses on, which is a bonus for me because I could never see marks, like even Ted Leslie I couldn't see. So this came out of necessity, but it's such a wild concept. When you read the ad copy, it sounds like a joke, like an April Fool's joke. It sounds like that's not possible, but I'm so happy that I solved it, and the people that have received the decks are happy with it. The only thing is that because of the nature of how it works, it doesn't necessarily look like a deck, like Bicycle or something, but they're quite odd in England anyway, Bicycle decks. So again, it's about how you frame the deck and how you perform with it. So I'm thinking of doing a forum as well so that we can discuss ideas to do with that, because at the minute it's really just a utility deck. I'm expecting people to know how to use it. So yeah, there's that. Recently I released my way of billetlessly guessing a phone lock or a PIN code, and
it's a very good one. Let me tell you.
Thank you. And this is similar to I won't go into it too much, but there's one principle I use that other people would recognise from something Pete Turner has done, and it's based on a Michael Murray principle. And his principle is in his new book, A Piece of My Mind, so you should definitely get that. I highly recommend that. Pete Turner as well is bringing out some lecture notes, which has got his version of this, like a pin reveal, where the participants guess the pin, so it's kind of his pin, so it's reversed. The reason I'm saying this is I want to clear up, the thing that I bring to the table is kind of a way of getting to a number. And I've stripped down a force that was in Animan, 202 methods of forcing, and I've broken it down with presentation as well to make it, in my mind, more deceptive. So it's an interesting way of getting to numbers, and then you can, off the back of that, with this other principle, reveal phone locks and stuff like that. And it's nice because it's completely propless, and it's conversational, so it just sort of happens under the radar with no one really seeing it. And that's the type of mentalism I really love.
Yeah, yeah. I think that your new publication, that I will not say the name because it's very difficult, is a good example of mixing the method. It's a good example to mix the method that they use in a subtle way inside of your presentation. It's not just the presentation itself to just show what they can do. Rather, they play very good together, and this is an example, I think, that you told us.
Yeah, that's exactly right. My methods and effect kind of run along the same lines, which is an odd thing to. You'd have to read the work to really know, which I know you have done, but other people that haven't seen my work yet. I mean, there's a memory revelation I do as well, which came out with Magic Box, which is Memoria. And again, the method and presentation are so fit together so well that even to me it feels like I'm approaching real magic. So yeah, you know, some people have said, oh, this pin reveal, it uses maths. Well, it doesn't use multiplication, it doesn't use subtraction, because they were methods that I wasn't happy with, and I had to refine it. It's just simple addition, and it's based on personal things that are personal to them. So to me, it just flies and fits completely with what I'm trying to do.
And looks very real, because if anyone go to the reader that use numerology procedure goes with additions and very simple math, but it's very credible.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going for. And I know Pete Turner is like that as well. I think he's returning more back to classic methods now, he told me recently. But one thing I love about what Pete's done as well is he's updated the classics as well. And he's pointed people back to them, because there are gems in there. And you know, everyone's looking for the next modern thing. So I don't mean to try to be that guy that does that. It's just come from a personal... It's just a personal preference, is that I'm trying to find billetless ways of doing things. I was never happy with billets. I've used them, and I do use them in the show. It's just kind of a personal thing. I need to push it as far as I can push it. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Morgan Strebler and the Facebook page says that your pin code effect is awesome. With
thanks, Morgan. Thank you. I remember showing it to a few magicians, and they were like, how would that give you the number? So I'm pleased it fooled them with a force that they should know about. It's the way I've broken it up presentationally as well. And I love doing things like that. I love, like, I think Oslan talked about how you should have an effect that can always run if people see it again. So, for instance, a point of misdirection where you would drop something, you can't have that in your effect all the time. But I think that you can have things like misses, because people aren't scrutinizing them closely, in my opinion. And when I perform close-up, I'm doing it for different groups. And those different groups, I think that my material, being not all duality, but quite a lot, some of what I do is duality, they might think that that it belongs on stage, because you can cover it better with the audience and the people on stage. I use it in close-up because groups just don't talk afterwards. Most groups are in their own group, their own social groups. So as long as you cover it across the room, I think you're pretty safe. And they remember the effect. Things get misremembered. But I try to create dual reality effects that would hold up anyway if people talk about it. That's an important thing with dual reality, is that it's tied up. I don't mean to say that everything I do is dual reality. The pin reveal isn't dual reality. It works. And there's a solid method. But I personally think that dual reality is a legitimate method. Because you're dealing, why wouldn't you deal with perception and words as a magician to bring about a magic result? I think that makes sense. To me, it seems closer to being real anyway. You know?
Okay. Well, Sean McCarthy on Facebook is asking us the following. What do you think of mentalism today? Are we in a golden age, or is the ease of access to information detrimental to our arts? What do you think about that?
What was the last part of that question?
Basically, is ease of access to information,
Facebook, Twitter. Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of a believer that. Do you mean like Facebook and stuff, or do you mean method?
No, just is looking. Anybody can find information now on YouTube, just googling things. Is that detrimental to our art, or are we in a golden age? What's going on right now? That's what Sean McCarthy said.
I think that's probably why we have to have emotional relevance, to be entertained or to feel like they've had an experience. It shouldn't just be, I can reveal this about you. That's kind of the vehicle to sharing the experience, in my opinion. Of course, okay, there's the issue that we can look things up now. But I don't think anyone would really believe that you've got mined all of your stuff from Facebook for the show. I don't think they think like that. If you do, then you're very clever. Because I think you'd get away with it. I really do. I know people that have done it. In one, to a degree.
But how about torrents and finding PDFs and videos, which is just piracy is so rampant now? Do you think that's also affecting our art too in a big way, or do you think it's really a minimal thing?
Is frozen? Fraser?
Yeah, probably. Let's give him a minute to get back.
Directly for me. So, and that's the first time they've come directly to.
Okay. Now it's back.
I think that was me. Am I here?
Yeah, we can hear you fine now.
Hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, my PDF, I had a PayPal account was hacked from someone, and then they tried to get it directly from me. So that's the first time I've actually experienced piracy, apart from when I was with the 1914. That DVD ended up on torrent sites. So I do believe, though, this is my opinion, that people that wouldn't buy it anyway are the ones that are downloading it. I think there is still a respect in the art form, and I think people like to have the actual object as well. So I don't think it affects sales too much. I might be wrong. Another thing is just hide it in plain sight. Right? There's the old idea that if you want to hide a method, publish it. Yeah. I think it was Dunninger. I might have this wrong. Might have been Dunninger. He released his whole act in New Scientist, I think it was, or Scientific American. And he still did that act for years afterwards, so it didn't affect it at all. Only people that are specifically interested in finding method will do that. I think YouTube doesn't help. Like the Ash and Amber ring that's come out, I think that's beautiful. I think it will end up becoming like a classic utility. But I think this is going to show you how YouTube is going to affect things. People will just go colour changing ring on YouTube and see how it works. So I think potentially that could be a real problem. The good thing about my methods is because it's words and perception, there's not really a way of debunking it. Even when it hasn't worked, people have said, how would that work anyway? Because it looks like I'm doing exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah, good effort. Another question that we can see in the Facebook page from Sean McCarthy as well. What is your opinion on real mind reading? Is there such a thing?
Yeah, I think you can do it. I think I've approached it before. I've used my real impressions in shows and had no idea how I knew stuff, But I was using methods as an out anyway, so that I always have a show. I mean, you see fake psychics and They're terrible. I went to see one recently, and she threw 4 or 5 star signs at me. I said, "Do you want a method for that?" You know, if they believe they're genuinely helping people in whatever way they are, they believe they're artists also, then you may as well help yourself out and have a method. Dealing with the illusion anyway. But you've got to be responsible, you know. So I think it is probably possible, but I don't really want to go too much into it. I don't want people to think that I don't say that it's real in a show. So that's how I should probably answer to magicians as well.
Fraser, in order to look like the real thing, I guess we tend to choose certain skills and abilities that we want to show, and I guess we tend to limit ourselves from having too many of them. So when you choose your effects, do you have any parameters? Like, maybe you don't do any PK, maybe there's no hypnosis. What do you not do and why?
Because it's close-up, so I don't necessarily think of my show in terms like you would stage show, where you'd have like a theme or a beginning and end. My theme is really, I prefer magic or mentalism that's more intimate. So, for instance, revealing date of birth, star signs, things that relate to someone personally, first kiss, name. I kind of go for that, as well as doing the readings aspect of it as well. So again, because I'm a close-up performer, it's really about the intimacy, and to make it, make it look like, yeah, maybe he can do this for that experience, not to say that I'm real, as entertainment essentially. So yeah, I don't really. I suppose it's more of like a pure form of mind reading. What would you be able to do if you could read minds? I like the idea of like the gypsies. They kind of presented it as real. So things like the star sign maybe seems closer to me, and it's a personal connection, and giving readings. So I like that aspect, and that theatrically, I like that aspect of it.
So I would assume you don't do any telekinesis.
Pardon?
You don't do any PK, any telekinesis?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. So I wouldn't mix it then with PK. I wouldn't go from a mind reading presentation to a PK in the same group or show. I don't think that just seems to be artificial to me. It needs to be a purer form, in my opinion. Unless I made it believable. I mean, there's this one magician that I know, and he does a bill or a coin levitation. And, it looks great, I suppose, visually. But I said, okay, well, how about imagine having it on your hand and waiting almost 5 minutes. Don't lose the person. Maybe do this casually rather than in a show, but just as a thought exercise. Just leave it for as long as you dare leave it before they get disinterested. And then it just rises just a bit and then it drops. And you look around as if to say, did you catch that? Because in my mind, when I've tried to levitate in my dreams, for instance, it was on a broomstick, ask me about that. But I realised I could actually do it in my dream. But it only happened for a short amount of time, and I had to get into a specific mind state. I was like, wow, this actually works. I wonder if I can show someone this, or should I show this? And this all happened in a dream. I think you need to approach it from what would it look like if it was real, not just make something fly around your head. And, I mean, I think magic, it's just a personal thing again, but I see a lot of bad magic. Maybe it's just because I've got the preference of making it look real. So yeah, I think, so PK for me, I would have to do it in a believable manner if I was going to do it. It might just be something moves slightly or something drops or smashes when you get angry, or not angry, you don't really want to be doing that. But when you start to concentrate and then the glass smashes, I think that's a beautiful indirect way of creating a moment.
Yeah, good answer.
Obviously,
and Fraser, if someone asks you about how they can start in mentalism or magic, or your work in words and believe in yourself as a real magician that can do miracles with their act, what is your recommendation for that beginner?
Beginner would always be to study the classics. Anneman, Corinda, study the classics, and then if you want to get into stuff, I know Kettler's got like samples on his website, so you can check out stuff like that. And Wonder Words is great. I think he's got it as a download. That's to do with using the wording and perception. But really, all magic is really about psychology to make it really play and really work. And I think that's what a lot of beginners can miss. It's the psychology, because it's hidden in the book. And that's the way to make it play and make it get away with it in the proper misdirection. So study the classics. And, you know, if you want to do mentalism, even studying Tower Bell, even studying It's How You Bought Them. And, you know, to take certain principles and make them even more direct. So it kind of seems like a shortcut for seeing principles can be applied. I mean, pretty much everything I owe to Kenton. You know, True Mysteries 1 came out of Kenton, I think, you know? But I'm pleased that I've brought people back to Kenton's work, because there's so much in those books. So definitely go to Kenton.
Yeah.
But study the classics as well. You know, that's essential.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on hecklers? You know, when you've got a belligerent spectator, what do you do with them? How do you handle them? What's your personal method?
Okay. It depends obviously how bleed their perspective. For example, when I spoke to an atheist, we ended up agreeing that for the truth, we just call it different things. I'm calling them God as just a label. You know, don't necessarily want the God of man.
The sound is a little weird, Mauricio, right?
Yeah, it's weird on my side too.
Yeah.
I was about to ask you guys that. Fraser, can you hear us okay? Okay, he's experiencing a bit of lag. Let's give him a minute.
Sorry, did you hear any of that? Basically, to give you a
Sorry,
magic
can you
example,
repeat that?
Hello? Well, to give you a magic example, it's really just reframing where they're coming from to go to common ground. So you may ask them a question. I mean, it's not mine to give away, but Pete Turner's got a nice way of framing intuition as something in such a way that he gives an example that they can relate to in everyday life. So what that allows to happen is the spectator all of a sudden is on the same level as you, on the same page. So it's really about reframing. Make something that sounds mystical equate to more mundane terms, and bring your spectators along with you that way. I'm sorry I haven't got a better example, because I kind of do it just naturally when I'm recording. If they're really a heckler, if they're really causing you problems, then I suppose I would ignore them or move to a different group, because usually the group will shut it up for you if they're interrupting the act. I know Pete works in Bradford, and I'm from England, and sometimes because there can be quite a lot of heckling, so we might tell them in a more direct way. I really like the story of, but obviously that's your responsibility. You've got to be. You should never upset your audience. Sometimes people are just that much of a problem. You just have to get them to the audience to tell them to go, basically. There's a great story. I think I can't remember who this is now. But there's in the golden era of magic with the stage and the suspension. One of the magicians, maybe you'll know Pablo or Mauricio, he got a young boy up on stage, and and to the audience, it looked like the boy was in complete wonder and amazement as the woman floated. But what he'd actually done is stage whisper, because if you touch those wires, you'll get a clip around the ear. Probably said it in more harsh terms than that. So you've got like a jewel there. The audience thinks that the boy is in complete astonishment, but he's actually reacted to what this guy has just said. So that always comes to my mind when talking about that. You could probably stage whisper almost, or just whisper something in their ear. I don't know. I'm not telling you to try that because it could end badly. But yeah, usually just ignore that thing, and the audience should tell them to shut up before you.
Yeah, yeah. As you said, it's very dependable in the culture. In some places, hecklers are very tough. In other places, yeah.
Usually
personally, I don't. Yeah. We have another question on the Facebook page. What are your thoughts on cold reading in an act? Do you use cold reading? What do you think about cold reading?
Yeah, I use it. I use readings. I think it's probably the purest form of mentalism, is giving a good reading. There's the approach in the school, which Pablo is also a member of, so you'll know this, Pablo. We call it mind reading as a technique. And without getting into specific methods, essentially we're reframing cold reading as mind reading. And I know Enrique uses that a lot as well, and other students. And I think that's, so to me, cold reading is like a purist form of mind reading, because it's populist. And you're dealing with people's real life, the real concerns, the real emotion. So you have to be careful and always be balanced. And I mentioned this in the your method as well, balancing things. Because if you say one cold reading, something that's polarized, like on the opposite side, because you're trying to give them more options to help themselves, and you're providing balance. But that's your method as well. That's your whole trick, right? So that's an interesting aspect. It kind of is almost self-working. You kind of have to get a knack for reading. So learning different approaches is good. But in the end, it's really kind of that's with someone, and I use my real intuition as well. And I can't explain how it works. I think it's the fact that we're more like each other, what we want to make, and then we pretend to be. So we kind of all have some concerns, and it's nice to have someone to share that with, even if you're a performer.
Fraser, there's something I'm really curious about. You said you mostly perform close up, like you don't do any stage work. So I know you use a lot of dual reality in your work. How does that all tie in? Because dual reality is, typically known for being used in stage, where a lot of people don't know each other. How exactly are you doing this without going into methodology?
Yeah. Okay. I kind of answered this. Okay, I kind of answered this before in a little way. I'm old enough to do it in close-up because that's how I perform. I'm not a stage guy. I've written some stage for friends that use that. But no, I'm close-up. So, like I said before, in a situation like say you're at a party or corporate, most people, maybe different for corporate, you have to be careful because they will talk if they're colleagues. But most people in like a social situation, say in a pub or a venue like that, will stay in their group usually. But I try to tailor the reality so that it will stand up to people talking. And we have this worry that they're going to completely dismantle the effect and the illusion will break down. But it's kind of, that doesn't happen. Usually there will be an effect that they'll still go, oh, well, that's great, even if they talk. But the nice thing is, off the back of you doing that effect, the rest of the audience that happens to not talk get a complete miracle some of the time, So it's almost like a way of enhancing indirectly to me, rather than it relying completely that's the method. So it's how you structure your A. It needs to be used correctly. It shouldn't be a stooge thing like Kenton stresses when he taught it got misunderstood a little bit. It's not like you're a stooge and you're in on it. it should be different realities. But I try to tie the realities as closely knit together as I can, and so it's really about tying it up as well. So I get away with it, and I think it's a really beautiful method, and seems closer to doing it for real for me. It's dealing with perception. You know, again, why wouldn't you want to use that as a tool as a magician? You know.
Yeah, yeah. Fraser, is anyone interested in your material, True Mysteries, your pin revelation, your deck? Do you have a website? How anyone can contact you?
Yeah, I've got a website where you can buy existing products. It's fraserparker.co.uk, so my full name .co.uk. But also, if you want to message me on Facebook, that's a great way of getting hold of me directly, and I normally can answer you straight away. So because because I'm moving back from Malta to England, there is some leftover stock that I've got, which I'm going to discount for you guys. I've got some True Mysteries DVD, True Mysteries 2, which came out as a book. So, you know, if they wanted to get the two together and PDFs and stuff, I can do a deal. So contact me on Facebook. That's probably the best way.
Yeah, on your website it says you offer consulting services. Tell us a little bit about that.
What's that? Sorry. Oh, consultancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I've not really had a job yet, as in terms of like TV and stuff like that, or written a full show. But I have had people ask me to write certain things for them specifically. So that's something I might end up doing. But to be honest, at the minute I've been offered to do lectures and stuff as well. At the moment, personally, I'm kind of just want to focus on performance. So that might not start until next year, stuff like that. You know, I love creating, and I'm always going to be creating. But I really, when I go back to England, want to really focus on the performance side now and get that moving properly. So there might be a bit of a delay before anything else like that, like before you see lectures and stuff.
Yeah, great, great. Fraser, I have a challenge for you. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
This is out of the rule that we have, but very simple. You see my hand?
Yes.
Fraser is frozen. Yeah, yeah. I have a ring. I will ask you one question only if you guess where's my ring. Okay? Let me place it in one finger. Now, nothing offensive, please, but please tell me one of the fingers quickly.
Who, me? So,
Yeah,
second?
yeah,
Two.
Which is the second for you, the index finger or the ring finger?
I would say the middle finger.
The middle finger. Okay, I told you nothing offensive, but you told that, okay? It's your free choice, right?
Yeah.
You have a powerful imagination. Very good. Now, Fraser, just a little game, but I want to ask you about something that you told us in a few moments ago. You told us that Kenton is your mentor, right?
Yes.
Yes, but how do you feel that his work affects you in a daily basis? In thinking about mentalism, but also in other things, because I think that his thinking can also affect us, because I am a student of Kenton in our daily lives.
Yeah, I think because has a philosophical bent on it, it relates to real life, and I think magic should relate to real life, like we talked about earlier. So yeah, if you're looking for what I feel is approaching real magic and the mysteries of life and our roles as magicians and what it might mean to actually carry that as a symbol in your daily life, then you should definitely check out Ken's stuff. And in fact, he's got the way he's teaching now, he's teaching directly to students and students of the inner school. that he's set up. So you should go to wonderwizards.com if you're interested in this kind of aspect and the real work of magic and mentalism and the real teaching. You should go along and get involved in that because you'll learn things there that you're not going to learn anywhere else. And I'm going to be in there, and I think you are as well, Pablo, correct? You're going to be chiming in the inner sanctum?
Yeah. Very cool place.
So yeah, go there.
Okay, well, Fraser, I'm going to give you a moment to.
So is there any more?
I'm going to give you a moment to like rant about whatever you want for a second, but hopefully you'll have like a positive conclusion at the end. What's something you dislike about the current state of mentalism? What is wrong with mentalism right now?
I think certain people's attitudes towards the performers. I think the biggest problem we've got is keeping the community positive because there's kind of needless infighting that happens on certain forums and stuff. And to me, that's completely missing the point of magic and why I even got into magic. And this runs into what Pablo was talking about with the philosophical angle of magic as well. So I think we need to be careful of that in our community. Be careful not to fight back, but to try and help people up that might be struggling in whatever way, right? If that makes sense. As far as performance goes, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with anyone's expression, as long as it doesn't harm them, as long as they... Personally, I don't think you can speak to the dead, but that's just my opinion. I think you have to follow your own heart and do what you think is best and right for you and your audience. It's a responsibility. So be nice. Sometimes we need to be harsh with words as well. Wake people up slightly, but only sometimes, perhaps. So is there any further questions, anything you want to ask me personally?
Well, you know, I heard about the time you went to Tamworth with Peter Turner, and there was a little incident there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I don't know. Why would you? I thought you knew not to mention that.
Okay, if you want.
You knew.
Doesn't matter.
No. It's...
What happened, Mauricio?
I don't know. I'm not sure. That was strange.
Fraser is like an becomes. What happened, man?
I don't know. Well, anyways, that was interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, Fraser Parker.
Okay. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us, and see you soon.
See everybody.
Bye.